Hi Libra, welcome to your September 2019 Astro Update. It's Rena here. First and foremost, happy birthday, happy solar return to those of you who are born in the month of September. For everybody, the month begins with the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars in your 12th house in the sign of Virgo. And it's very interesting to start the month this way because there's this sense of wrapping up, of having something that needs to be finished before you can proceed, and also that sense of hibernation. And, this is not atypical because every month you're going to have the Sun in the 12th house, and very likely Mercury, and Mercury is very close to the Sun. And so that's not a newsflash. Venus and Mars are close to the Sun, but, if there's a retrograde or something like that, they can be kind of farther apart. But no, this month of September, just like the beginning of August, we have clusters of personal planets in one sign and, at one time. And so that can give like a decided emphasis in this area of life. But because we're talking about the 12th house, it's more like endings than beginnings, even though this is the beginning of the month. And also, I should say, too, that the new moon in Virgo has just happened a couple of days prior. So there's another Virgo influence. The moon has recently been in that 12th house. So it's kind of like, if you think of new moons as beginnings, it's like the beginning of the end, the beginning of the ways to cut ties with the past and clear out so that you can start your solar cycle new. And hopefully improved. On the 14th, we have a full moon at 21 degrees of Pisces, which happens to be your 6th house of health and work. On that same day, both Mercury and Venus go into your sign. So, a lot happening at one time. This is what makes this so interesting, is that it's not like there's a lot of days where things are happening in the major transits like this. It's more like you get 3 major transits in one day. It's all happening at once. So there's a major shift, and I'll talk about the Equinox shift as well in a second, but I just wanted to call attention to that. So what does a full moon in the 6th house mean? Well, it can be as simple as wanting to detox. Full moons are periods of purification. I remember going to Kundalini yoga. Some of you may have tried that type of yoga. It's become more popular, I believe, especially since Gabrielle Bernstein, who wrote The Universe Has Your Back and Spirit Junkie, I believe she was even a teacher of Kundalini Yoga, but at least she is a practitioner, and I think that helped her to break her addiction, which is in the book Spirit Junkie. I highly recommend that book if you haven't read it. But I remember the first class that I attended, and they were talking about how the full moon was a period of purification. And I don't even know if I had ever really heard that before. And when I researched it, I found out that it is it's very much a part of some traditions. I don't know about in Hinduism with Ayurveda, if they, pay attention to the moon phases. But yeah, they're very much in the Kundalini yoga about, how to eat, like eating lightly and things like that. The full moon to the new moon period is the waning moon, And that is when things are easier to let go of. So this is in keeping with the full moon aftermath. And so sixth house can be your health. If you have certain things that you would like to stop eating, practices that don't add to your health. This is also a detox phase with the full moon, so that can be something that some people feel that they're called to do. Also, anything work-related that there's an emotional undertone, things could come to a head. Could be even, I think, something to do with a promotion. If there is something that you've been working hard towards and you feel that you maybe you've been deliberately doing this in order to show your talents, and now it's going to pay off. Mercury and Venus in your first house simply give you more of a desire to perhaps enhance your look in some way with Venus, beautify. It's hard to imagine a Libra that needs enhancements in that area because you're pretty on top of that usually. But also Venus can relate to how others perceive you, so they may be more attracted to you than usual. Mercury in the first house is you being your best advocate and maybe standing up for yourself, speaking on your behalf. If you have to defend yourself for some reason, whether it's in court or with, even like in the office, stating your claim on why you deserve a raise or why you deserve a promotion. On the 18th, Saturn turns direct in Capricorn, fourth house of home and family. You've got I was going to say, you have kind of like a lot of challenges with transits in the fourth house at this time in your life, Libra. And by the way, that's not meant to discourage you. Actually, I believe that challenges can be some of the best ways for you to be able to progress because you're pushing back against something. This is what they talk about in the law of attraction is contrast. When a person doesn't have anything to contrast their life with, it's hard to know what it is that you want because you don't know what you don't want. So this is one of the reasons why talking about good transits and bad transits isn't really that enlightened, or good or bad anything in life. The things that we call bad or even challenging can spur us on to greater action. If things are like, you have these trines versus squares in terms of aspects, and trines, it's like things flowing to you just without much effort. But if you think about it, if you have things just fall into your lap, are you very likely to appreciate them, or are you more likely to take them for granted? And taking things for granted only leads to having a less accomplished life, I would say. So being able to feel that sense of urgency in life and not just be kind of resting on your laurels, I think that's a good thing. So how this can manifest for you, this planet Saturn stationing direct in this domestic area, Libra, is if you have been, let's say you've been actually trying to buy a house and you're saving money, and maybe you kind of fell off the wagon and you haven't been so disciplined. Now you may be back into that mode. And I don't know. I think I was reading somewhere about Saturn in the fourth house in terms of buying houses or being able to move, there might be some obstacles in those areas, but definitely since Saturn is about not just living in the moment, but thinking about the long term, I could see somebody who is saying, okay, I'm ready to own a home. And you're going about it methodically. You're saving X amount of money a week, for instance. But like I said, when Saturn went retrograde, your resolve may have dissolved, and you may have been a little bit lax, and now you're getting back on the stick. So that's one possibility. There's also the possibility, maybe even as a parent, as somebody parenting a child, that you were following a very strict policy and you became lax, and now you realize that you need to go back to the original policy. I think, I'm going to be doing, this is a great reminder to me. I want to do a series on the sun signs and how they parent, and also the children of each sign. So, Libra sun, parent and child. And I think that there can be insights into some of the differences that exist. And I think one of them for Libra, and right below, because I'm not a parent, but I just kind of perceive these things, right below, if you think that I'm correct or incorrect about this, Libra, don't be overly polite. Tell it like it is. I can handle it. I would say that Libra as a parent would probably veer towards overly lax. That would be hard for you to say no to your child, even when you know and you sense the pattern that it's, that they're getting spoiled with hearing yes all the time, and they're just continually taking more and more liberties. And it's so funny because I think that eventually even Libra, realizes when it's gone too far, and then they try to make up for lost time. And your cardinal signs should have no trouble giving orders, telling people what to do. And I think that the ones that have the least problem with this are Aries and Capricorn. But I think that Cancer and Libra may have a tendency to be afraid to assert themselves. But once they kind of get into the habit, you can probably do it with the best of them. So anyway, that could be something that is going on, that you're kind of like going back to your, the old school method. And I'm not talking about, physical discipline, but just by being like, having a lot of boundaries with children, and not kind of like blurring the boundaries by allowing them to do things, maybe inconsistent parenting, something along those lines, and now getting more into that. Because Saturn is kind of that strict parent. Saturn is very, I would say, quite authoritarian, and it's the sign of the father. And usually the archetype is that the father is the disciplinarian. Now, we know that we're not talking about gender here. We're just talking about the archetype of what the father represents. Okay. On the 23rd, the sun goes into Libra, and this is the equinox time. And I think that, especially if you're in the northern hemisphere and it's fall, if it's autumn, there's a feeling in the air of a sense of getting down to brass tacks. We just came, we're going from the Virgo season to the Libra season. And, Virgo is all about organization, and Libra is a cardinal sign. So it's time of, change and taking action. That's why these times are so powerful. And so this is your, this is your solar return period. And so the sun is in your first house. That's great in and of itself. And so that's very self-empowering. Even just physically, you may feel vitality coming back to you. On the 28th, we have a new moon at 5 degrees of Libra. So that's really cool too. And, for those of you, the funny thing is, for those of you who are born after probably around the 28th of September, this is actually going to fall in your 12th house, and you're going to have to wait another month for having your actual new moon in your first house. So the reason I say that is just because this is a very early degree of Libra. So for many of you Librans, I usually don't talk about these things because I get kind of confused about trying to figure it out. But I know that this one is really only going to be a true new moon for the very early Librans. And for the rest of you, the new moon in Scorpio is going to be on October 27th, just for future reference. So, I still believe that when you have a new moon in your sign, that there's going to be those themes that connect with you, with it. And so, this is a time for you to set intentions for what you'd like to manifest. And even if this was falling in your 12th house, I think that's great too, because the 12th house is kind of that spiritual dimension. It's kind of like the womb of creation. And, the first house is kind of like the birth. So, don't be afraid either way to kind of envision your perfect life, what you would like to bring into your reality, Libra. Don't be shy, because, I do believe in dreaming big. Of course, it's important to have that sense of, like Saturn represents the down-to-earth crystallization of our dreams. That's always good. But to have dreams, you don't have to choose between being realistic and dreaming big. Just make those big, realistic dreams. And that means, how do I get there? How do I start here where I'm just like in my mind thinking of these things? I have no evidence that they will come to me. How do I get from there to, like, let's say you are dreaming of a certain type of home, and right now, Saturn is in that 4th house, and you feel like you need to lay down roots, and yet you don't have the money to purchase a home, and maybe you're renting some property, but you're not really into where you're living for whatever reason. There's all kinds of things you can do, including drawing a diagram of like what you would like it to look like. And writing things down is a great way to envision, because sometimes just having it in your mind, it's just too abstract. So, now that I say that, you could make the case that writing something down is the first step in bringing it down and kind of making it a material thing. And, I think that some of you Librans are really like have experienced a lot of change and relationships that have shifted, and for you this may feel a bit unsettling, and so if you feel unsettled, that can also create this sense of instability. And really, I like that Saturn is in your 4th house, because one day I looked at the symbol for Saturn and it looked like an anchor to me. Now, there's every possibility that I read that that's what it, kind of represents in a book, and I just had it in my subconscious mind. But regardless, it's like Saturn can help you to shape your desires on a domestic level. One thing I should say too is that just in terms of having children, maybe you have kind of shied away from the idea, and now you are reconsidering it, and maybe even feeling that there's a sense of this being your destiny. I will let you know, though, that you do have the South Node in that fourth house as well. You have Pluto, the South Node, and Saturn transiting this fourth house. So, given that, if you are thinking of having children, make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, because this can indicate when the South Node is in the fourth house, if it is for you personally, it can indicate that you can't keep doing the same thing over again. You can't hide behind your children or use them as a distraction. That right now, because Cancer is your 10th house and the North Node is there, this is a great time for career matters, that your destiny awaits you in terms of career matters. And so it's important not to get caught into that trap of like fearing your success and then kind of hiding out in home, but really like showing off your stuff, showing what you've got, because the 10th house is your reputation. It's how other people see you. And if you're the kind of person who's a little bit afraid of that kind of exposure, you may shy away from it, but the universe is calling on you to share your talents with the world. Okay, Libra, that's what I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you would like a personal reading, maybe a natal chart reading because of your solar return or whatever, the link is below. My website is rainamoonastrology.com. Take care. Bye.